Right now, we are right in the heart of Colorado's gold belt. We are in gold country and absolutely beautiful area. Just very pretty, the canyons, the rocks. I love coming up here. But this is where it all started in Colorado when you had the Pikes Peak gold rush. It all began right here. And a lot of the old prospectors, old miners, they came to this part of the country trying to strike it rich and find some gold. And in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the methods that these old-time prospectors used to find gold in places like the area where we're at right now. And you have to keep in mind, these old prospectors, they depended on finding gold. That was their livelihood. If they didn't find gold, they didn't eat. You know, they would starve. They had to find gold. And I think that's why they were so successful. And they learned a lot of tricks. And in this video, we're going to look at some of those tricks that they used. And we're also going to briefly just talk about who these men were and why they were so successful. And if you have any other tricks that you want to talk about, just put it down below in the comment section. I know they would look at different plants, different mineralization occurring in the trees and stuff like that. So if there's anything you want to add, feel free. But I hope you enjoy this video. And if you do like it, hit that thumbs up button because that tells YouTube to push out the video. All right. Right now, I'm getting ready to go hiking in this canyon and we're going to go take a look at some stuff. But before we do that, I wanted real quickly just to kind of paint the picture of the background of who these old prospectors were, who entered areas like this before us back in the 1800s. And to do that, we have to go back to 1848. And in 1848, gold was discovered at a place called Sutter's Mill in California. And they tried to keep the discovery secret, but like most good gold discovery, word got out really quickly. And in the following years, California was inundated with prospectors and gold seekers from around the world. Historians estimate that around 300,000 people participated in that particular gold rush. If we fast forward about 10 years to the year 1858, you had a similar situation occur here in Colorado. Gold was discovered at a place called Little Dry Creek, and in the following years, you had around 100,000 men who came to areas like this searching for gold, and they called this gold rush the Pikes Peak Gold Rush. And a lot of the men, especially during the first wave, they came from the East Coast, and these men were very young. The average age was right somewhere around the mid-20s, and some of them were even teenagers. They were like 17, 18, 19 years old. And these men risked everything to make the long journey and a dangerous journey out here to Colorado in the hopes of finding gold and seeking it rich. And these men didn't know nothing about prospecting, nothing about mining. But luckily for them, at about the exact same time, that gold rush in California was coming to an end, and it was really starting to wind down. And a lot of the good gold and the easy gold had already been claimed, and it was being worked. And so many of the prospectors and the miners were finding themselves out of work. And so when they heard about this new gold discovery here in Colorado, it was like a godsend for these men because it gave them a new chance, a new opportunity to find gold and to seek it rich. And keep in mind, these men that we now call the 49ers, they brought a lot of experience with them. Many of these men had been searching for gold in the deserts and mountains of California for almost 10 years. And so they brought all that knowledge with them here to Colorado. And so it's kind of interesting, at about the exact same time, you have these old crusty prospectors from California showing up here in Colorado. And you have these young greenhorn, tenderfoot men from the East Coast. But it actually worked out really good because these old veteran prospectors were able to teach these young men how to find gold. how to survive out here in the wilderness, how to get along and interact with the Indians. And in return, these young men, they provided their youth, their passion, their energy, and they were able to do a lot of the heavy lifting, basically a lot of the very labor-intensive work that comes with prospecting and mining. And so both of the talents of these two groups were kind of mutually beneficial, and it worked out really good. And between the two, these men were able to find a lot of gold here in Colorado. The first method we're going to talk about is called placer mining. And placer mining is a very ancient method of mining. It's been around for a very long time. And placer is just an old Spanish word, and it basically means gravel or sand deposit located in or near water. And so placer mining, by definition, simply means mining gravel or sand deposit. And placer mining was most definitely the preferred method of these old timers. It was a very cost-effective way to mine because you didn't need any expensive equipment. All you needed was basically a gold pan. And these old timers, they became very proficient at placer mining. It was estimated by historians that the average prospector back then would process about 50 pans of dirt a day. And so if you do the math, that's about one pan every 15 minutes for 12 hours straight. And to understand how gold gets deposited in sand and gravel like we have right here, it's actually a very easy process. And you have to keep in mind that gold is very resilient. It will not rust, it will not corrode, it will not decay. I got a little nasty spot right here. And gold is also very heavy, it's very dense. And so just envision right here on this cliff right here, just pretend this cliff was way up on some mountain peak. And you had a gold outcropping right here. Let's just pretend this pink colored rock is gold. And you have a series of natural processes that will dislodge that gold. For example, you'll have freeze and thaw cycles. So the surrounding rock, this would be called your host rock, you'll get water in the cracks and crevices, and it'll freeze and thaw. And this cycle will continue, and over the years, it'll break away the host rock, and gold will become dislodged and fall out. Another example would be, say you had a rock slide somewhere high up on the mountain, and a big old boulder came down and hit this area. It would break up the rock, and in that process, the gold would become dislodged and fall out. During the Ice Age, when you had the glaciers dislodged a lot of gold. And then you have just simply natural erosion, like rain, water erosion, wind erosion, that'll eat away at the host rock, and over time that'll dislodge the gold. And when the gold becomes dislodged, you have other natural processes that will bring it down into areas like this. And it's basically, think of like avalanches, mudslides, different types of erosion, weathering events like heavy rainstorm, snow melt off and stuff like that. And then the Earth's natural gravity will pull that gold down, and eventually it ends up in bodies of water like this, in placer type deposits. And those old timers were very lucky, and they knew it, because back then the Indians had they did not value gold. It was not part of their economy. And so, for example, you know, if an Indian was walking along here where I am now, and there was a gold nugget down here on the ground, he probably wouldn't even bother to pick it up. You know, he might think it's a pretty rock and like the luster and that kind of stuff, but it would have no value to him. It would play no part in his local economy. And so all this gold just sat here in areas like this for a very long time. And once it makes its way into areas like this, into streams, rivers, creeks, you have usually like severe thunderstorms, snow melt off in the springtime, but the gold will make its way down and it'll continue until it gets lodged in cracks and crevices or in gravel bars. And anytime it reaches like a sandbar or a gravel bar, gold is very heavy. It's heavier than the surrounding materials. And so it's gradually just going to work its way down into the earth until it hits rock. Rock is the only thing that will stop gold. And the rock, like this rock right here, that's what you'd call the bedrock. And so back then, whenever there was a new discovery made, that's why there was this mad rush to get to the discovery site. Everybody wanted to get there first because they wanted to get to that easy gold. That gold had just sat in areas like this, undisturbed for thousands of years. And they got a lot of gold. It's well documented that in areas that produced gold, they would, sometimes there was so much gold that they would literally just pick it out of cracks and crevices with their fingers. Sometimes like every deposit of gravel that they panned, they might get out like three or four gold nuggets. And that's why they could afford those hyper inflated prices for their goods and services at wherever the nearest boomtown was located. And they always paid for those materials in gold. But I'm going to show you what I believe is a very nice placer deposit. Right now I'm at the very bottom of this canyon, and those old timers, they would look for areas like this right here where I'm standing. This is a very sharp 90-degree bend in the river. So envision you have a flash flood and you have water carrying all this heavy material with it, to include gold, and it comes around this sharp 90-degree bend that I'm standing in, and then right here it levels off and it widens, and so the water's going to slow down at this area in front of me. So the only thing you're probably going to find down there is flour gold, and those guys had no interest in flour gold. All the heavy material is going to drop off right here in the area where I'm standing. And they would look in cracks and crevices up here. They would pan and test pan, and if they found gold, they would start processing all the material. And especially like gravel bars like this, because in this area you would have a lot of agitation in the water, and you can even see where a lot of the heavier rocks are getting deposited right here. And so they would dig into this stuff, pan it, and look for gold. And if they were finding gold, if they were finding pay dirt, one thing they could do if they had a reliable source of water, which you don't have right here, is they would build a sluice box. And a sluice box was a very efficient way to collect and recover gold. Another method they would use, and this is called drift mining, but they would use a lot of them, a very primitive form of drift mining. And they used to call it coyote mining because it reminded them, the holes they would dig reminded them of a coyote's den. But what they would do is just pretend right here in this area we're at, you had a larger deposit of gravel, and say the bedrock was about 15 feet straight down below us. So they would dig a vertical hole in the ground by hand with the shovel until they hit the bedrock, and then they would make vertical or horizontal tunnels going out that way, just like the spokes of a wheel in every direction. And what they would do is they'd collect all that material right above the bedrock, bring it up to the surface and pan it But this was a very dangerous method of mining. A lot of times when they'd get down here and they'd be working in stuff like that gravel, it would collapse in on them. It would crush them, or they would get trapped down there and just suffocate and die. And a lot of those old timers died doing coyote mining. And they knew the risk, but they did it anyways because it was a very quick and efficient way to get a lot of pay dirt out very quickly. So once a placer deposit had played out and they had recovered all of the gold, they basically had two options. The first option is go and find another placer deposit. And that's what a lot of them did because that was a very quick and easy way to get gold. But another option they had was to find the Lode deposit, find the source of the gold. And so if they chose to do that option, what they would do is, say, like this dry creek bed we're walking up right now, say clear up and until this point right here, I had found gold. So everywhere behind me, I found gold, but everywhere in front of me, I ceased to find gold. So the gold stopped right here. That would tell them that the source of the gold is coming from up here, or it's coming from up here. So what they would do is, say they want to start on this side first, they would start digging holes, just little test holes all over on the side of the mountain, and they would pan it. And say they didn't find any gold, then they would move over to this side and they do the same thing. They would just dig holes here, there, everywhere until they started finding gold. And then they would chase that gold up the side of a hill, up a ravine, all the way up to a high mountain. It didn't matter. And they would have other clues too, like some of the gold they would get out of the placer deposits would still have pieces of the host rock on it. And so that would tell them or give them a clue of what type of rock formation the gold was coming from. But to trace out the Lode deposit was very time consuming, and that was time that they lost where they could have been working a placer deposit. But sometimes it was worth the risk, because if they were able to find the Lode, the source of the gold, they would become very rich. Have you ever wondered where the Indians got that red paint that they used to make those beautiful pictographs, to paint their face or to decorate their teepees with? Where did they get that red pigment? And they got it from this. This is a really cool mineral. This little pocket of mineral you see right here. This is called hematite. This is an iron oxide. And this is a really cool mineral. No matter what color it is, whether it's red, rust color, brown, it doesn't matter. When you crush this up into a powder, it'll turn red just because of the way it reflects light. And so what the Indians would do is they would take this hematite, grind it up, and then they'd mix it with other minerals like clay and sand. And that's how they got that beautiful red pigment. One thing those old timers would do is they would always look for outcroppings of rock, like what you have up here, just a rust colored rock. And if they found any rust colored rock, they'd go up and investigate it. And they were looking for specific minerals, iron type minerals like hematite, magnetite, limonite, and pyrite. And if they found these iron type minerals and they found enough of them and it looked promising, they would dig into them looking for gold. And they found a lot of gold that way. And that's where the saying comes from: gold rides an iron horse, or gold wears an iron hat. And right here, this is the Arkansas River. Absolutely beautiful. Right here, this is a quartz vein, kind of sandwiched right in between these two pieces of granite. And this particular type of quartz is called bull quartz, this white quartz. And it's real pretty, and it makes for a good rock ornament at your house or something like that. And you can see, here's another outcropping over right here, and it kind of runs all the way up through this rock. The old timers, they didn't have any interest in this type of quartz. It's very rare to find good gold in this bull quartz. But I'm going to show you the type of quartz they were looking for. Right now, we're a few miles north of the canyon we've been exploring. And this is an old mine I found last year. And this mine's located right in the middle of a fault zone. We've got a lot of mineralization occurring here, but this will give you a good idea of the type of quartz that those old timers were looking for. And like right here, a lot of the shiny stuff you see, that's muscovite, biotite, and we got a little bit of pyrite in there. The brown you see, that's iron staining, probably from hematite. But I'll take you up there and show you where the mine used to be. But very beautiful, so I hope this camera picks it up real good. This is the mine dump. The pyrite is very interesting. Back in the olden days, you had a lot of people out here who were very inexperienced, and it was quite common they would find pyrite and think they had struck it rich. They thought they found the mother lode. They would gather up all the pyrite they could carry, head over to the next boom town, thinking they're going to strike it rich and celebrate and make a claim. And then, of course, as soon as they got to town and everybody's seen their quote-unquote gold, they got laughed at and ridiculed. And after that, pyrite started to be called fool's gold. But right here is the old mine shaft. It used to sit right back there. Unfortunately, the Forest Service beat me to this one, and they've blasted it shut, which really pisses me off, but it happens. But really beautiful stuff. Ugh. Anytime, like the shiny stuff you see, man, this thing's heavy, I gotta set it down. Man. But all the shiny, anytime you break open a mineral, it's gonna break at the weakest point. And that's called the cleavage point. And the cleavage point is what you see reflecting the light. And this is a lot of muscovite and biotite, which have no economical value, but man, they are beautiful. And both of them are a type of mica, but absolutely gorgeous. Well, there you go. This is the kind of quartz they wanted. Man, the weather forecast said it's supposed to be nice and sunny, but it's starting to rain. But right here, I want to show you something. This process we're going to talk about, this is called Brecciation. So right here, you have an old rock, and it looks like it was probably granite. And keep in mind, granite is it's a very hard rock. On the scale, if I remember right, it ranks about a 6 or 7, maybe even an 8. And so this rock, it's had a tough life. And what happened is at some point in time when this rock was down deep in the earth, it came under immense pressure and stress, probably from like a fault type event. And under all that pressure, this rock fractured into tons of little pieces. And then you had hydrothermal fluids that came in through all the little cracks and crevices of those broken pieces of rock. And that's why you see all this quartz, biotite, and feldspar. So this hydrothermal fluid deposited all these minerals, and these minerals glued the rock back together again. And so then the rock made up to the surface where it is now, and it's just slowly decomposing, so I can pull pieces off with my finger. And so those old timers, they would look for these brecciated rocks of this type. And what they would do is they'd look at all the minerals that were in the rock. And if they found gold-bearing minerals and they'd find little pieces of gold, then they would break the rock and they would see what was inside of it. And if they found gold and they're happy there was enough gold to make it worth their time, they would crush rocks like this up and pan it and get all the gold out of it. Those old timers, they weren't book learned in geology, but they had a very good understanding of the geological processes involved with depositing gold. And so they would look for stuff like this. See right here in front of you, see that pink rock? That's granite. It goes all the way across. That is an igneous intrusion, a horizontal intrusion. This is called a sill. And this sill runs all the way along, clear across here. It goes and then it disappears right behind these trees, and then it reappears about 40 feet up right there. I'll zoom in on it so you can kind of see it right there. And so what happened here is you had this body of rock right up here, came under a lot of tension, and it moved upwards like that in that direction, and that's called a fault. And you can see the fault line right here, kind of goes along just like that. And so those old timers would look for stuff like that. And what happens is you have a process called fissure fill. And how fissure fill works is if you have a fissure, a crack in the earth like that, it's going to get filled no matter what. It's either going to fill up with molten magma, or it's going to fill up with hydrothermal fluids that will deposit minerals. And so those old timers would go up and investigate areas like that where that fault is, and they would look for mineralization. And if they had good mineralization and they were finding evidence of gold, they would mine it, dig into it, and hopefully find some gold. But I want to look at this pink granite right here. You always got to be careful in areas like this. I find a lot of rattlesnakes. But right here, oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful rock. This is granite. This is called Colorado Rose. And just a beautiful piece of granite, beautiful color. And at one time, this is all just molten magma. And then right here, this dark rock, and it contrasts really well, this pink and this black. So just very beautiful stuff. Got a nice little quartz vein here. It's got a little bit of mineralization. You got some iron staining right here. And then right up here, got a really big quartz vein. Comes all the way across. Very pretty. But over here, I want to show you something. This mineral right here, this green mineral, this is called olivine. And olivine's a really cool mineral. It originates in the upper mantle of the earth, right below the earth's crust. And keep in mind that gold also originates in the mantle of the earth. So the same geological forces that brought this olivine up here to the surface could have brought gold with it. And olivine, they've actually found olivine on meteorites, and NASA's Curiosity rover has found it on the planet Mars, which is really cool. And it's also a gemstone. I don't see any crystals around here, but you do get crystals, and it's a gemstone. It's absolutely beautiful, but really cool stuff. And then right here we got a little bit of pyrite forming. This olivine is usually found in gabbro or basalt, and this rock looks like it's probably gabbro. It's not very large crystals, but it's probably gabbro. But really neat stuff, and some really pretty quartz in here. We got some biotite here, and looks like some little veins of pyrite. So really cool. Man, I'm starting to get rained out. So much for the weatherman's prediction. But it's been a lot of fun, and I hope you found value in this video and you enjoyed it. And keep in mind, like, these old timers, they found a lot of gold, and they most definitely found the easy gold, no doubt about it. But they didn't find all of the gold. You could have had like a super rich gold vein just covered under a few inches of dirt and sediment that they walked right over, didn't even know it was there. And then due to erosion, that gold vein has been exposed. Every minute of every hour of every day, even right now as we speak, these placer deposits are being replenished with gold. And so there's still stuff out there to find, and there's still discoveries to be made. But the true treasure is just being out here in nature and enjoying the natural beauty.